So hello everyone and welcome back to Pilot Talks. My name is Tamás Szekéryi. I'm co-founder and managing partner of iScale Group, where we are currently in the process of launching a venture fund to finance corporate startup pilot projects, basically the testing and integration of external technologies in the corporate environment. And we have recently launched this short form podcast series to get a kind of better understanding of what makes a pilot project successful, what are the characteristics of different pilot projects in different sectors, and also what kind of supporting mechanisms are available in that space. In the previous episodes, we mainly talked to startups and corporates to understand their situation. And in this current episode, we'll focus specifically on the public sector. And I have an amazing guest here, Kyle, from the Miami-Dade Innovation Authority, who will help me to better understand this space and how to do pilot projects in the public sector. Kyle, thank you very much for joining us today, and very nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you too, Thomas. Thank you.
Kyle, as a first question, as I mentioned, we talk to startups and corporates, and I would be very interested that from your perspective, representing a nonprofit organization in Miami, how do you see Miami-Dade's Innovation Authority's role in the city's life? And what kind of public innovation challenges have you guys worked on so far, whether you have any active challenges that you're running or what you expect, any further challenges you have that could be interesting for startups around?
Yeah, that's great. So thank you so much, Thomas. Thanks for having me here. I'm happy to speak a little bit about MDIA beforehand. So regarding MDIA, that's our acronym that we use. It's a first of its kind public innovation authority in the United States. So we are the first innovation authority, and our role is to bridge the gap between private innovators and the public sector to fast track the procurement of technology that would enable local government to more effectively and efficiently improve the quality of life for everyday residents. And so our role is, one, we're helping government become more innovative in general and creating a culture of innovation within government. And two, we're this external party, since we're a nonprofit operating outside of the government. So we provide execution support to facilitate the pilot process, because our government employees and our government teams are already focused on so much and what they're working on within the government. So having support to execute the pilots is a huge value add for them. And regarding the different, maybe our core program and what we do on what's our core offering, we have what's called the Public Innovation Challenge. And the Public Innovation Challenge is a way of working with different departments within the government and asking them, what is it that you're trying to solve that is a huge, big ticket issue that your constituents are really concerned about, or that you yourselves, right, are really concerned about, that would impact the public, and posing the problem publicly for startups to then look at and say, oh, I have a solution to that specific issue. And so it differs from the usual model of the request for proposals, which tends to be very rigid, where it's like in the request for proposal, usually that the solution itself is defined, where it's like, here's the solution that we need, and here it's, to target a specific problem, but it has more rigid scoping, and it has much more of a defined, like, here are all the requirements we're looking for, here are all the technical specifications we need for this thing to do. And often it ends up limiting the number of solutions that come to the government partner looking, or like conducting the request for proposal. Regarding your second question, so one of our most recently launched challenges was streamlining housing access and resident experience. And what we were looking for, we partnered with the Housing and Community Development Department at Miami-Dade County, and with Miami Homes for All, which is a local advocacy organization, to look for technology solutions that would help on three key areas, which are navigation, which is like navigating all of the resources around affordable housing that exist within the county, but that are actually very difficult to navigate on your own.
Mhm.
Second was optimization, which is like optimizing the placement of residents within um, within affordable housing units, and then mapping tools to find new locations for affordable housing sites.
Okay. So different areas that could positively impact basically the city, right? And you're pretty much open to innovations globally. I mean, you know that one of the reasons that I was particularly, like impressed by your work at Miami-Dade Innovation Authority, because you have such a unique model that I really haven't really seen, around with different other organizations. For example, like, so first of all, you define these public innovation challenges, right? And you also pair it with $100K, $20,000 equity investment for pilot
Mhm.
projects. I think it's amazing. Can you guide us a bit through that? How this process works basically, and what is the impact that you are aiming for with these projects?
Yeah, absolutely. So happy to speak about the process and then also like why we make the investment. Um, and the impact itself. So regarding the process, we go through a multi-step process for the Public Innovation Challenge that starts with talking to the partner, right? And we're selecting and identifying a challenge first, right? We're asking them, what are the most pressing issues in your own department?
Mhm.
And we work with them through a series of workshops to find out what are the most pressing problems for them, what are the most pressing problems that also affect their constituents, and where is there also an opportunity that has enough of a market for that specific problem of startup companies that would be addressing that issue. And so we're assessing it from multiple different angles, which is both on what is the public good that could um, what value in terms of public good could be created by us doing this challenge, and then also, is there a market for this? So that's like step number one, is selecting and designing that challenge so that it is viable, basically. The second is we launch the challenge and then we start recruitment. So you can see on our website right now we have the housing challenge up, and we start a campaign, basically a public campaign to increase awareness of the challenge opportunity. So it's like press. We work with pipeline partners, which there are so many within our network. I think we have over 100. Don't quote me on that, but we've got quite a few pipeline partners who help drive startups to apply for these challenges. And we utilize our network to be able to drive volume to the challenge application. And then we have a very robust review process. So after the challenge closes, after the application period closes, then we're working with a selection committee. Basically, we handpick different individuals who are looking at the applicants from several different angles
Mhm.
and trying to assess whether or not the pilot would be viable.
Mhm.
And so it's not just our team looking at it, it's actually subject matter experts in the specific issue. So, for example, in the solid waste challenge, we had subject matter experts in solid waste, in waste diversion, in recycling, in waste to energy solutions, et cetera, in
You have
our
to bring in
process.
specialists, right? Experts to really
Right.
investigate whether the pilot would make sense, or how should put it, the feasibility of the pilot project.
Exactly. And we involve them, the folks who also would implement the technical components of the pilot,
Right.
which is like sometimes it's like the technology department at the county. Sometimes it would be people from the department themselves who would be working on the actual technical implementation, and they're involved in the process. And then we have investors and folks from our board as well, who have a background in assessing the market potential and the actual revenue generating capability of the company as well. So all of these different stakeholders are involved in our due diligence process and our application review process. And I think that contributes to the strength of the, it is the reason why the solutions that we end up choosing end up being so strong, because it's being looked at from all these different angles from different parties. So that's the third phase, is selecting and investing. And then we announce the winners, right? Which we usually pick 3 to 4.
3 to 4 winners. Okay.
3 to 4 winners of the challenge after a multi-step kind of whittling down, funneling. After the due diligence interviews, we kind of know who would be the suggested winners, and then we choose to make an equity investment in those winners. So then that leads to the fourth step in the process, which is we test and validate. So this is where the actual pilot begins. We start that proof of value pilot demonstration with the company themselves, piloting their solution through an agreement with the county. And then we enter that period of testing and validating. And during, we're often reporting, checking in. And then at the end of the pilot, we report and recommend. And if there's a potential for procurement, which I believe one of our companies already is going through the procurement process within the county, then we help and facilitate that process. That's the Public Innovation Challenge process.
Amazing. I think it's a very smart, move, and then also like how you facilitate this whole process, specifically that you can also, give them this equity investment, right, for the pilot projects. This is also my experience that many startups are struggling to, even to pay 100K for the pilots, and many, even in the public sector. Maybe you can maybe tell me a bit more on that. But what I see with corporates, that many corporates, they have either very limited budget, like 20, 50K, or no budget at all. So it could be really challenging sometimes to finance it. Does this model have any kind of limitations, or is it flexible in a sense that, for example, you give them 100K, but let's say that there is one startup coming in, and the pilot, for some reason, they cost 150, 200K. So it's a bit more than how much you can actually cover.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and one that we've considered. I think that so in our own case, we've decided on 100K as a reasonable amount that would cover and defray the costs of the pilot with the companies. And then we try to be selective about, we kind of pre-selected that amount and selective about choosing winners that are within that can actually benefit from that $100,000 investment and have that cover the costs of piloting. So obviously there are some solutions that would cost a lot more than that to pilot within the government, and in which cases we are conscientious of that in our selection process to try not to, if there is a solution that is much more expensive to pilot, then we try to we save it mental note, right? But we may not choose them as an investee for that particular challenge.
All right. And as my final question, Kyle, would be really cool that, like previous episodes, we told a lot more about, corporates, how corporates approach it, how startups approach corporates. But I'm very curious that what's the situation with the public sector? Any characteristics, like specialty that people need to know about that, like compared to how to do pilots in the private sector, or more like with corporates? What's your experience on that?
So in the public sector, with respect to challenges, one thing that we can note when a pilot is happening is that government agencies are accountable to the public, right? And so they operate within frameworks to ensure that, one, the public funds are being used fairly in a way that is thoughtful and that is calculated and will lead to a positive impact for the general public. And so to ensure that fairness, transparency, and that the funds are being used responsibly, there are a lot of safeguards in terms of policy and infrastructure. And that often dictates what sort of risks the government can take with respect to what technologies they can pilot. And it's often the reason why a lot of government entities will pilot solutions with very established companies that have a very solid reputation for delivering some kind of a service, right? But that cuts newer companies out of the equation. And so this is the gap that we're trying to bridge. Another thing that I would say is that in the public sector, there are a lot of stakeholders, very complex stakeholders who are involved in any given pilot, right? So you have elected leaders who are like involved in the pilot. We've got internal departments. We have also the community members who weigh in and want to know like why we're piloting certain things. And so with all these complex stakeholders, it adds a lot of layers of decision making and approvals to that may not be present in private sector pilots. And there's a lot, and again, to protect the public, there are all these safeguards for privacy, accessibility, etc., that may require more stringent compliance from startup companies that sometimes startups just can't meet, right? And so that complicates things versus the corporate sector where it comes to like the challenge is more around how can we very quickly measure results? How can we make sure that we pilot this in a very quick timeline? What's the ROI? And the ROI differs as well.
I mean, sounds pretty complex, right? But I think it's always good that an organization like Miami-Dade Innovation Authority can jump in and facilitate this whole process, and probably like even fasten it up if it's possible. That's awesome, Kai. Thank you very much for this insight. I think it's very useful to understand both sides, right? That or let's say both private and public sectors in that space. Kai, I always ask this as a final question in these interviews. Currently, what's the best way to reach out to you, and how can the audience who's listening to this podcast help you?
So I think that we're always looking for solutions, and actually we look broadly, not only within the continental United States, but also more broadly across the world. And we have a few international startups as well and international solutions that we've explored. So if any of the challenges that we launch or will launch are of interest, then supporting by spreading the word and becoming kind of like what we call a pipeline partner is a huge help. Even if you just directly send the challenge to someone within your network, that is a huge help to us in terms of the diversity and breadth of different solutions that we get to see. In terms of where to find us, you can find us on our website. That's probably the best way to reach us. It's MDIA.Miami. Very simple. And you can also find us on LinkedIn and all the social media platforms as well. And please feel free to message us. We'll be super responsive, and we're happy to talk to you.
Awesome, Kai. Thank you very much for the insights and for this information. So, I mean, for the audience, if you guys have any challenges that might fit what Miami-Dade Innovation Authority is looking for, and what Miami can also benefit from, feel free to visit their website or reach out to Kyle on LinkedIn. And also in general, we are also looking to post some further episodes. We have some great interviews coming up with some corporates, startups, also legal professionals to discuss these topics in more details. So feel free to follow us on our different channels. And Kyle, thanks again for joining us and for sharing your insights in this space. And also for the audience, thanks for watching us, and see you next time.